Alright, YouTube, it's time to talk a little bit about occult self-help gurus. And I don't mean like the Miss Cleos and stuff, the total fluff bunny shit. I mean within the realm of black magic and especially modern occult literature. And specifically, I'm going to focus on E.A. Koetting, Michael Ford. Some of these other figures are basically the same, let's face it. I would just like to point this out, though. I don't think that it's fair to give them criticism without also extolling the virtues of their work. For instance, with Michael Ford, his musical works are admittedly very good. I like ambient works. I've listened to some of his work. It's quite good. The Luciferian Apotheca, which he's associated with, has excellent incense blends. It's pricey, but it smells really good. Especially the Leviathan incense. I don't know if they still carry it. There was one that I had purchased one time. Is really, really good, and I haven't been able to find it again. I can't remember the name of it. It was the best incense that they had, and I think they discontinued it. I'm not exactly sure why. So, and for Koetting, I've read several of his works. He's definitely well written. He's definitely a well-spoken individual. My criticism, thus, would stem from several things, a little bit different in regards to both of these figures. As far as Michael Ford goes, I have not read his works myself, so I can't claim an unbiased perspective here. But I know others that have, and say it's basically spooky woo material, for the most part, a lot of filler. I can believe that this is true without having read the works. I know that may sound a little bit unfair, but I take one look at his YouTube channel. The musical works are very good. He obviously has the style down for being a showman or a self-proclaimed guru or leader of sorts. But at the same time, a lot of it is a little bit on the over-the-top side. I tend to generally distrust people who set themselves up in a self-help manner. I will contrast, thus, my own work with the work of these other figures. About 90% of everything that I've released in a literary form is not of my own authorship. These are out of copyright old texts, dating sometimes to antiquity, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, up through the Edwardian era. The historical impact, the historical importance, and the bibliophile appreciation for such works is not in question. The manufacture, the authorship is often in question. For instance, the Solomonic grimoires have nothing to do with Solomon. They're European texts that were made in the European era. They were made during the Renaissance. That doesn't mean that they didn't have historical impact. That doesn't mean that they didn't influence politics. It doesn't mean, certainly, that they didn't influence spirituality. Some of these works attributed to Hermes that have nothing to do with Hermes. Works attributed to Moses that have nothing to do with Moses. They didn't come until 1,000 years after this figure probably lived and died. This is the case with many of these works. But I'm not making wild claims about them. I'm not saying to people, if you buy my catalog of works, you can become a living god. If you buy my catalog of works, you can, fly and see demons and go to the moon and talk to ETs, because that would clearly not be true. What I do is I release the edited works for historical reasons, as well as in a general sense. I do study the occult. I do believe in the occult, again in a general sense. Because I believe in memetics, because I also believe in the psychological and perhaps chaos-related side of magic, I consider all magical systems potentially useful. It depends on how they're seen. It depends on how they're interpreted. Within my own works that I've authored, for instance, within occult memetics, I make the claim that through understanding the text, you can understand how this type of propaganda operates. If you are sane, if you are intelligent, you can take that, use that same basic formulation. It's not difficult to understand, and you can increase your own ability to manipulate things, to manipulate literally the way people perceive reality. But I don't make the claim that it will allow you to actually see a frog god, fornicate with demons or something like that, like some people might claim. My criticism of E.A. Koetting would be similar. He, if you look at his YouTube channel, ruminates, generally speaking, on how to become a literal, it seems, living god. He uses the clickbaity style titles, for instance, putting in all uppercase "boom" before the title of the video. Conspiracy theorists also do this. Individuals that just want to drive more viewership tend to do this. to the point at which people who are looking for clickbait will look up those terms and filter the results to actually find videos that will titillate them. The idea of, oh, I renounced my loyalty to the voodoo masters, now here's the irrevocable one truth of this religious path, or Santeria practitioners or something like that. I question whether that's actually legitimately true. And it seems like even people who appreciate his work, I'm one of them. I've got several of his works. It's not like they're poorly written. It's not like they're cheaply made. They're very well made. I have nothing but respect on that side as far as the literature itself goes. It's the content that I question. It's the motive behind releasing that content. Is there any specific reason to believe that this material is actually coming from any sort of historical school within the occult? The answer is no. There's no reason to believe that. It's so over the top. It's nothing but advertisement. I'm willing to advertise, for instance, my works on YouTube, but when I'm advertising them, I don't throw in a bunch of clickbait and tell people that it will help them win the lottery, that it will help them secure the sex of the person that they desire to be in bed with them. Now, I will say one thing in Koetting's defense, though, and I don't think that other people often have pointed this out, and it's worth pointing out, in all fairness. The idea of self-improvement overlapping with the occult is itself a tradition within grimoires. Look at the Petit Albert, which I worked through. It talks about how to win at gambling. Here's a spell for winning at gambling. Here's a spell for avoiding danger. There's a spell for getting 3 women to come to your room, and you can choose one of them to screw that night and stuff. That is a legitimate tradition within especially European folk magic systems. I'm not discounting that. I'm simply saying that to the modern audience, which is a little bit different from the audience that would have been absorbing literature from, the 15th century on through maybe the 18th century or maybe early 19th, thereabouts, it seems a little bit inauthentic, I think, to most people. And again, many of his fans, people who have actually purchased and enjoy the literature, appear to be becoming more wary, more hesitant of the material, specifically because it has gone from the realm of a more purist tradition, maybe European/Vedic purism, to something that goes well beyond that, mixes all these pantheons together into a sort of hodgepodge. I try not to do that. For instance, I was criticized on Amazon within my release of the 12 Keys of Basil Valentine. Somebody left a low rating there and said, well, it doesn't contain the illustrations. That's the point. The illustrations were not present in the original work. They were added later as German woodcuts in an edition, basically the second release of the same work some decades later. I preferred the purest path when it comes to releasing these things in as original a form as possible. The only exception to that is if something has been strictly, obviously added thereafter, and it's good enough, it's intrinsic enough to the work, made the work popular potentially in the first place, to retain it. It's often illustrations that really are involved with this. So my criticism of these individuals, of Michael Ford, E.A. Koetting, and so forth, is not to be suckered into believing that these individuals can actually make you a god-man or something like that, because they can't. If you understand the material and you understand the underlying propaganda-based principles behind their work, then you'll probably understand exactly what they're doing. Showmanship itself is an occult practice. Anton LaVey did it. Now, Anton LaVey was not an occultist. Anton LaVey was not a theist. Anton LaVey had no beliefs in theism whatsoever. He didn't believe in a Satan. He was an atheist. The mock-ups that he performed were to get money, were to get attention, were to piss people off in some cases, live-action trolling or something of that nature. That being said, if a person adapts that same general system, if they understand how he attained that popularity, they can replicate it. That's how you become a god-man. That's how you learn to use memetics. That's how you learn to manipulate through propaganda. For a benevolent purpose, for a malevolent purpose, it makes no difference. You have to understand that it's happening, that the person that you're looking at is projecting an image of themselves that is not entirely accurate. that the person they don't even need a legitimate if they understand enough about propaganda, about memetics, they don't even need a legitimate understanding of the occult. Again, the proof is in the pudding. How many historical works are these people releasing? Can they show that they had to have read such a work if they're actually releasing an edition of it? I can prove that. I've got a whole catalog of these works available now. Others tend to author their own works, offer their own opinions. I've done this too, but I don't make the same wild claims, because those claims are false. If you want to become a living God man, or you want to learn how to manipulate people into doing what you want them to do, you have to understand the very secular concept of propaganda. The spiritual overtones can enhance it, can make it more powerful. I've already explained how this works. The fact is that there's something in man that is easily exploited by religion, by spirituality, by hijacking the survival mechanism, which is the lowest common denominator of human awareness. If you can learn how to exploit that, you can do great things or you can do very bad things. We've seen both happen in the world. On a secular level, we've seen it happen in state after state throughout time. But just because a person has talent, in Koetting's case, mainly a talent for writing, and also a decent talent for speaking, you have to give him that. Or in Michael Ford's case, he does make very good music. He does offer products, that they're physical products. He's not selling you some electronic ebook that claims to allow you to levitate or something like that. There are plenty of charlatans out there with a lot less talent than these individuals that offer you completely useless junk, and they get paid for it. Then there are others who prefer to offer you something tangible in return. So I can respect that. It's just the commercialization of the occult. In a way, I'm guilty of it too. I do sell books, but they're physical. I didn't even bother to add ebooks until people demanded that I do so. I still don't know why they don't want paperbacks instead. It's something physical. It's something with an intrinsic value. It's a physical object you can hold in your hands. I don't like ebooks. I would never use Kindle. I would never purchase books in that manner. I want to put them on my shelf. I want them to be there so I can grab onto them. Insofar as these people are releasing actual physical goods, I have no problem with that, and neither should anybody else. I've seen some people quite unfairly complaining, saying, oh, well, this book's a piece of shit, doesn't do anything. Yeah, it's still a book. It's still collectible in a general sense, especially if it has anything to do with the occult, some self-proclaimed grimoire that allows you to raise the dead or something. Sure, the spells probably don't work, but at the same time, hey, it's a book. Books are valuable. Used to be more valuable than their weight in gold in the old days, back when they had to print them manually. Now it's a little bit easier, perhaps. Something hand-bound. Yeah, it's an attractive object to consume. It's unfair to criticize anybody for that. They're adding to the scope of human literature at the very least, so you should leave them alone on that count. But no, I wouldn't believe, for instance, EA's claims, oh, become a godman. I renounced my loyalty to the voodoo masters, so here, if you buy this book, you know the real skinny on Santeria or something. No, probably not. It's probably some sort of hodgepodge fusion system. Much like if you read the Book of Azazel. I own a copy of it. It's very well written, but it does mix this material together. A lot of it is backstory and has very little to do with actual ritualism and things of that nature. I find the more hands-on ritualism or the more straightly academic side to be more of interest to myself, but it's worth purchasing. It's certainly collectible. It's an attractive book and so forth. That's why I spend time on trying to design better cover art for the releases that I'm putting out. I realize they're just paperbacks, but I want them to at least appear attractive. That's why I don't use shiny covers. I don't want them to look like some $9.99 textbook that you got in your Renaissance Occultism 001 class or something like that as a primary source document that you had no choice but to purchase from your school library. I want it to look a little bit better than that, insofar as the limitations of, again, paperbacks go. So I have no problem with these individuals, nor should anybody else, but if you're taking those specific claims seriously, you will be let down, because those claims are not true. It will not allow you to become a godman unless you can understand something that's generally not even physically written of. If you understand the propagandistic, mimetic side of what's actually being claimed. about what's actually being marketed, then yeah, you can use that as self-improvement, but you don't even need to buy the material for that. You just have to understand the underlying basis of how these things operate. It's very, very simple. I've explained it. I'm not going to write a book on this basic subject because it should be freely available information. It's no more, it would take 10 minutes to describe it. I've already done so. That's how you become a god man. You understand propaganda. You understand that humans are irrational. Basically, they're nothing more than brains piloting a meat skeleton around. And they have a drive for survival at the lowest common denominator. You can exploit that through spiritual means. It's very simple to do. Some of us use it more for benevolent ends. Those of us who believe in freedom, who believe people should leave each other alone, they should live at peace, the world should be clean, the world should be an enjoyable place to live. Maybe not, hedonistic materialism, but in an Epicurean sense, yes, the purpose is enjoy your time on earth, be free, do what you want, don't harm anybody, nobody should be harming you, leave each other alone. If you want to fuck, fuck. If you want to eat something, eat it. If you want to get drunk, go ahead and inebriate yourself. Just don't be a shit fuck about it. Then there are other people, unfortunately, who use the same process. They typically, unfortunately, have much better funding and more manpower, who are in the opposite camp. They want outright materialism so they can profit on it, or they're ascetics. They do that so that they can repress others. It's rather unfortunate. And both sides, I've already pointed this out too, are equally bad. As far as Koetting or Ford or any of these others are just marketing physical products, who cares? Let them market it. Some of these things are going to be highly collectible, highly sought after in 100 years. If you're buying their works, hold on to them, because when you're old and gray, there aren't going to be that many more copies of these available. You've got these limited runs, 100 editions or something like that. Yeah, that's something you should probably collect if you've got the capital for it. It's going to increase in value over time, unless your cat eats it or you accidentally spill like your sacramental blood goblet all over it or something like that. And hey, then you can just say it was part of a dark ritual and it's haunted, and people will pay 10 times as much on eBay. I've seen it happen before. It's astonishing how stupid some people really are, but at the same time, it's a good marketing gimmick, I suppose. So yeah, a little bit of criticism, fair, constructive criticism. I mean, they could temper their message. They could easily improve the way that they're doing things. For others, just be wary of the more over-the-top claims. Otherwise, who has a problem with these people? They're releasing physical goods. They're not trying to sell you something that doesn't exist. They're not telling you to send them $19.99 and they'll give you a blessed talisman or something like that. I would argue in that sense they're far superior to like the Christian church. They will sell you magical water. They will sell you a genuine piece of Jesus Christ cross. It's a piece of driftwood. They've been doing this for thousands of years, so the showmanship aspect, while perhaps not as authentically occult in many cases, is superior still. In its worst forms, it's still superior to Abrahamism. So I'm trying to give constructive criticism here because I don't have any problem with their message. I just think the more over-the-top stuff is quite clearly not real. That's about all. Peace out.